Jeff, did you watch wrestling this week?
Ian, I watched wrestling this week. Well,
Well,
great to see you.
good to see.
No, it was another fine week of pro grappling contests decided by either clean and easy to understand stories or referee chicanery or something along those lines,
complicated, complicated stories that because everyone rejected your first story, so then you had to
Eh,
change course. Imagine if they could do
no,
that. Like,
no. It was totally the plan all along.
oh, sure it was. That's why it made so much sense, right? I like
Exactly.
that they've never explained why, or at least they haven't yet. They haven't explained why Cody said on that episode of SmackDown, "Yes, Roman, I'm coming for you, but not at WrestleMania."
Mm.
Eh,
I
I
think
don't
they're
know what they're
just
gonna do. I don't know if like,
here's what I think they're gonna do.
yeah.
Hope that no one but you remembers that. That's what they're gonna do.
Well, they can go back and re-edit it. So Cody says, "I am coming for you, Roman, but not at WrestleMania night 1. It will be on the second night of WrestleMania." Yeah! Everyone
Yay!
loves this storyline.
Or they could just have
And
him be
then
like,
here
"I'm
comes
coming
The
for you,
Rock for no
Roman.
reason.
I'm coming for you, Roman, at SummerSlam. It's gonna be a great match with you and me at the SummerSlam."
But you wonder if like big TV shows had the same opportunity. Like, I don't want to give away spoilers for Game of Thrones, but some people weren't happy with the ending.
True so.
Um, like I wonder if they could have done like a dusty finish. If they'd like if that gotten reveals like, oh, so and so's on the throne, and then like, they have their version of a referee come out and be like, oh, actually, here,
It's
so
the
and
little
so is the
guy.
rightful heir to the throne. We were just kidding. Um,
That well, I mean, that's kind of how it ended, to be honest. So, aside from a referee, there was a dragon that made a bit of a decision. But aside from that, like, yeah, yeah, no. And I'll tell you though, TV wise, they absolutely have the opportunity to do all that because, like, we live in the age of reboots, restarts, and reimaginings.
oh
So,
yeah, oh yeah.
if they didn't like something about something last time, well, geez, we just do it different this time. It's fine.
But I think them not sort of tying up those like little loopholes, I think they're just expecting fans such as me to go, well, they're headed in the right direction. Who cares if they took like a shortcut to get there when they had to pivot? Because you know what? The Rock is heel. He's going to do some fun stuff.
He's
Just
here.
have a good time with it. It's better this way.
I'm pretty sure WWE's official position on things like that is what's SmackDown? I've never heard of it. Shut up. That's
um,
that's the official party line. But you bring up an interesting point about our friend Senor Rock.
yeah.
Um, in that there's rumblings of the Rock sticking around for a little bit, maybe after WrestleMania. Now that he's got his TKO business and his movies are doing so well at the box office. That perhaps he might stick around for a bit. Well, so there is a potential that The Rock could become a heel sometime down the road. What my theory presupposes is, what if The Rock becomes a babyface in the next few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it could happen because remember, the thing that caused the fans to turn on him
Mm-hmm.
has been rectified, right? So now that reason to hate The Rock
Mm-hmm.
isn't as like, The Rock isn't preventing
Mm-hmm.
Cody from finishing his story anymore. So why do we hate this guy again? He's really funny.
Well, and
Um,
and the whole thing too, if I could put my Jinder Mahal memorial booking cap on for a second, is that they have created an opportunity for Roman and The Rock to butt heads in terms of a bloodline power struggle.
mhm.
Roman gets upset that The Rock has stolen his thunder, so on and so forth. They end up in a grudge match night one,
Yeah.
and then night two, you have Cody or you could even reverse it and have
Mhm.
Cody finish the story on night one, perhaps involving The Rock in some way.
Yeah.
And then night 2, they do the grudge match. Now, you need to play that up leading into
Mhm.
the deal, because that would be mean that you would just like not be telling people what the main event was for night 2.
Yeah, yeah,
You're like, what's it gonna be? I don't know.
yeah.
You know, biggest show of the year. We'll let you know the day of.
Well, it's
But
kind of like when Kevin Owens and Steve Austin main evented WrestleMania. It's just kind of like, yeah, they're gonna have a segment, they might fight. Well, you'll see.
and it turned out great.
Yes, and I was like, okay, fine, sure,
Yeah.
great.
And then there's also the opportunity, if The Rock is sticking around, to have them do a Roman Rock dust off at SummerSlam,
Hmm.
which we're hearing is going to be in the beautiful burg of Cleveland this year,
Oh yeah,
home of the Miz and Johnny Gargano, if I may. I only know this because they're Browns fans, the poor
yeah,
bastards.
yeah. Logan
Yeah.
Paul too, although he now lives in Puerto Rico.
Well, wouldn't you, being the United
It
States
gets a
champion and
lot
all?
less snow in Puerto Rico.
True. True say. Um, but I think that if The Rock is going to stick around for a while,
Uh-huh.
like, he's gonna make the call.
Oh yeah, oh
I'm sure
totally.
that they'll come to him and be like, "We have this idea for you," and he'll be like, "That's neat. What if I just go out and make fun of the town a little bit?" And they're like, "Well, you do that very well, so by all means."
I don't think anybody's telling The Rock what to do, right? Like The Rock is
Mm-hmm.
the biggest star in the company. The Rock is on the board of directors. The Rock is basically coming to not save the company
Mm,
from these Vince McMahon allegations, but to kind of like be the new face of the company.
yeah.
So
To kind of
people
do
forget
this.
about
Look at
Vince
this.
McMahon.
Look at
Yeah.
this. It's
Look, The
shiny.
Rock's
Look
here.
at
The Rock's
this.
here. The Rock said, don't worry about that. Oh, that doesn't make you feel good
We
to
don't like
focus
that.
on.
No, no, no.
Yeah, no, look
This
at
guy
oh,
though,
look at
he's
this
great.
guy. Hey, oh, candy ass, Rudy Poo.
Size 13s up here. Oh no, that ties into the. Anyway, never mind.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so like ultimately it's everything's going to be his call because it's basically his company, like I don't think
Mm-hmm,
Triple H is going to tell him what he can and cannot say, or The Rock and Nick Khan are very tight,
mm-hmm.
so you know
And here's the thing: The
uh,
Rock isn't going to be sort of like nuts enough to walk in and be like, "Give me the book. I want to run the whole show."
no, he's not going to do
He just
that.
wants to do some fun stuff with himself and whoever's he's up against, and the way he went. So Triple H can do this without sort of
Yeah.
having to worry about someone coming in and trying to usurp his position, which
No,
is
I
great.
don't think The Rock wants Triple H's position, and I don't think Triple H wants The Rock's position. I think there's a reason that Triple H wasn't selected to the board of
Mm-hmm.
directors for TKO, and I believe it's that he doesn't want to be on the board for TKO. He's
Yeah.
doing exactly what he played the game to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like that this is the spot that he wants. The Rock, it's different, but I
Mm-hmm.
do think Triple H is, you know, not that he's going to let him do anything. If The Rock says,
Yeah.
I'm going to go and win the title and, spoil all your things, like, there's going to be
Yeah.
enough people within WWE to say that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But
He's
when I
on the
say
board.
like,
He's not the chairman.
but I do believe that The Rock is far more committed to WWE than just this WrestleMania. Obviously, the board of directors, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
that's for show. I think The Rock is looking at the next stage of his career, more in the business world than in
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood or in wrestling. And this sort of kind of like molds the two together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means for his film career. I haven't heard of any upcoming big projects with The Rock, and that leads me to believe that like for the foreseeable future, he's got his
Mm-hmm.
WWE role and he's got the football league, and that's what he's focused on, right? And the Zoa
Oh
energy,
yeah, he's way into Zoa.
you know.
He's
And I
even
just
more
hope that
into.
part of that I hope that part of that includes the young Rock coming back too. So,
Oh, that'd be good
which
too. Yeah.
I hear it might. So,
Oh, good. Yeah,
yeah.
no, he's way more into Zoa than he is even Terramana.
Is that his
So
tequila?
yes, yes, he was
Yeah,
very into Terramana. That was his go-to thing. But now he's into the Zoa
he's into
because
the
it's
Zoa.
I don't know if it's available up here in the frozen north or not, but I don't like energy drinks, so
No, I
sorry,
don't
bud.
even think I've ever had an energy drink.
Oh, I don't think they're great. They're not good.
they,
It's like
they don't get a
imagine
good they don't get
like
a good reputation.
like melting down some of the worst candy you've ever had
Oh, that
and then
doesn't
just
sound like a
drinking
good
that
idea. Oh, terrible.
and then sitting like this for a few hours.
No, I don't like that.
No.
Uh, I like a morning coffee to get the gears turning.
Mm,
Uh,
that's it.
that's it, man.
Sometimes they turn, sometimes they don't.
I don't need to be diving head first, charged into the day. I like to take things a little bit easier than that.
You know, I'm a big fan of the process, which is start slow, build up. It's all good. There was another thingy in the well, a few thingies in the news this week that dealt with Vince McMahon and allegations and stuff like that, and it's a
Yeah,
bummer. But
I
like,
know.
this delves into like the psychology of it all. I guess is the best way to put
Yeah.
it, and sort of like, okay, so Mick Foley, Randy Orton, John Cena, and Bret Hart have all sort of made comment
Hmm.
on the allegations against Vince McMahon, and there's sort of Mick Foley. I don't know what to do about Mick Foley. John Cena to me today actually put out a thing saying that he still loves Vince McMahon. He loves the guy, and
Yeah.
if these things are true, it's horrible, but he can't put that aside. And I'm like, that is not a good look for you, John. Randy
Yeah.
Orton. Randy Orton,
Hmm.
on the other hand, gave an interview to Sports Illustrated in which he said something akin to, you know, Vince McMahon, I wouldn't be here where I am without him, but
Hmm.
this is some horrific stuff, and it hurts my heart. And
Yeah.
I thought that simple statement kind of was where people should be with this in terms of the talent. The other one was Bret Hart, who said that
Yeah.
he had so much respect for Vince and he's ashamed that he thought so highly of him,
Hmm.
which I think is reasonable as well. But the Randy Orton one kind of stuck with me because that there are so many people within that organization that Vince, to them was a saint.
Yeah.
He was the guy that made them what they are. He was a father figure, a mentor, all this kind of stuff. And to have to reconcile that with the monster that he actually is has got to be just like the mental gymnastics required have got to be huge. And, I think that if nothing else, this just confirms what an actual textbook sociopath Vince McMahon is
Hmm.
because he's able to be these different people without any indication to the other person that there's anything else going on. And that's like a
Yeah.
trademark. I don't much, but I've seen a lot of Criminal Minds. That is a trademark of the sociopath, psychopath, psychosis.
Yeah.
So the idea that like, Mick Foley's kind of like, well, Vince did do a lot for charity. It's like
Yeah.
these guys thought so much of him that they're trying. They're trying to find some kind of light in this because it is so hard to see like there is no silver lining. But this is a
Hmm.
person that they have respected and argued with and shared some very emotional times and moments with. And so trying to find something in that that's like, yeah, I know he's like the worst, but he gave me some money for charity once, like they're trying to that is them trying to reconcile things.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that we need to give that upper echelon of talent, you know what I mean? Like the ones that Vince really um pushed a little bit of a grain of salt through all this as they try to figure out how to process it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because I've been listening to and reading a lot of these interviews with wrestlers talking about Vince McMahon, and a lot of them have been very, very honest, especially Bret
Mm-hmm.
Hart. And when Bret Hart said he's someone that deep down I always had respect for, that was such an honest comment for
Yeah.
him to make, right? Because he's had his battles with Vince McMahon,
Oh yeah.
right? He's seen Vince's bad side. Um, you could tell by his comments that like, yeah, he had to reconcile like this guy who's a complete monster
Mm-hmm.
is also responsible or partly responsible for my fame, my success, and
Oh,
my money. I don't want to, like I don't want to believe that my success depended upon someone who was doing those things, who
mm-hmm.
does those things, who is that, right? So like your any person's ego is going to be in a fight with the facts on that one,
Yeah.
because they're not going to want to let you believe that any of your success was in part due to someone who could be like that, and it
Yeah.
also just doesn't fit with your image of that person if Vince wasn't showing you the real person that he was.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the comments that you hear from Mick Foley, for instance, Mick Foley said, well, you got to think about all these things that Vince did for charity or something like that.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for Mick because I bet you Vince McMahon showed Mick Foley a
Yeah.
charitable side of him. He played up that he's like, I know what, damn it, I know what.
Yeah.
I don't even want to do my Vince voice anymore. God
Nah.
damn it.
I know it's a good voice
Um,
too. It's annoying.
I know and it's so ingrained that I'm just gonna go there naturally.
Mm-hmm.
But so Vince, wanted to
Yeah.
portray a character to Mick that would make Mick like him, make Mick motivated to
Mm-hmm.
work for him. So he was showing Mick a charitable side of him.
One of the key
Meanwhile,
tenets of a psychopath is his ability to be a master of disguise
yeah,
and
do you
play into
think him and
everything you
John
want. You know?
Laurinaitis ever talked about charitable work? I
No.
don't think they ever talked about charitable work. So, and Vince probably knew how, like, who would be
Mm-hmm.
accepting of my certain sides? Who's going to like me more if I portray myself this way?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's coming out in these interviews with people talking honestly about their relationships with Vince and who Vince was to them and
Mm-hmm.
how they can reconcile this Vince from the Janelle Grant lawsuit and the other allegations to the Vince that they thought they knew or that
Yeah.
they had seen or that he had presented to them.
Yeah, because this isn't. This is. I mean, obviously, this is a horrible situation for all the victims,
Yeah.
but they're not the only victims in all this.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people who really looked up to Vince, who looked up to a lot of things. I mean, for a long time, us as fans, even
Mm-hmm.
WWE was the unshakable tree. You know what I mean? Like it was the constant. Always WCW comes and goes. AEW may come and go one day, but WWE has remained
Yeah.
always. And for the first time, for us as outsiders, we're seeing that it could all come tumbling down,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and everything we thought we knew could be wrong. And that's hard to do. And I don't even know these people personally. I can't imagine what it's like for the people that know them personally. And that's, I have sympathy for people who knew Vince or know Vince or know Janelle Grant or anyone
Mm-hmm.
else, who's going through this and are trying to figure out, because a predator hides in plain sight.
Yeah.
A predator makes you, and when you think about, especially in this context now, you think about a lot of the stuff Vince has pulled over the years, a lot of things you've heard about, like him, pitting talent against each other, and you're like, oh well, he's trying to up the emotion and this kind of.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, no, maybe he actually just enjoys manipulating people.
Yeah.
You know, like he has done things that have been questionable, and some of them you're like, well, it's a business thing, but then you stop and wonder, like maybe he had a more personal motive for some of these things too. And it shakes everything to the core because he was so entrenched. And I can't wait, honestly. I can't wait to never have to say Vince McMahon's name again.
Oh yeah. I can't wait till this is over, but
Mhm.
this is a long way from being over.
Oh yeah,
Um,
and I live in fear every day that it's going to come out that someone I really like and respect, or someone that's doing a great job or something like that, knew something or didn't say something or something like that, and it's going to take them down too. And yikes.
that is the concern, right? So with this lawsuit, if
Hmm.
it goes to trial, uh, emails, text messages, all
Mhm.
of that stuff becomes public. And Janelle Grant has said she has no intention of settling. Eh, I don't know how common it is for people to say that and then settle. I don't know. But so if it's the case that this goes to discovery, a lot of things are going to become public that could
Mhm. End
cause
careers,
could
end
end
lives.
careers of executives in the company that play a pivotal role in the company. And
Mhm.
so you worry like this company could be sort of gutted from the inside. It might not be. Like we said,
Yep.
Vince clearly was showing different sides of himself to different people. I
Mhm.
don't think, you know, like I don't want to speculate on who we would have shared what with
Confided in or
whom.
what? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's,
That's all going to come
but
out. I just want it to get smaller, not bigger.
yeah,
So that it can be.
I just worry, yeah, like we could see some change at the top, and so there's
Mhm.
that level of uncertainty, and part of me thinks, well, all right, The Rock has just come in,
Mhm.
he's the like if you need to say, all right, that regime's out,
Yep.
here's a new one, it's with The Rock.
Well,
That's
it's really
you know,
interesting you say that too, because in that Sports Illustrated article with Randy Orton, he talked
mhm.
about how he was out for 18 months and the entire company changed.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, when I left, everyone was still there doing everything, and I came back and no one is here and everyone's in different spots. So, like, there has been some significant change
Oh
within
God, yeah.
WWE as it is. And I think what gives me a little bit of hope, I guess, is
Mhm,
that, TKO bought this company for $9 billion.
mhm.
They knew they were going to have to deal with the Vince scandal.
Yep. Yeah,
And I
they
feel
did
like if
know. Yeah.
they had any knowledge that it was going to go any deeper than that,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have bought the company. Or at least they wouldn't have bought the company for $9 billion.
Thing is, though, so far they haven't been affected. So far, it's been
No, they
okay.
haven't.
You
But
know.
like, if it comes out that Triple H is their heir apparent, he is the guy they want running the WWE side of the company.
Hmm.
What if it comes out that he knew stuff?
Yeah,
You know
that's
that
okay.
that
So,
screws up a huge portion of things for TKO. So I feel like TKO would have already done a bit of the diligence in terms of that. And if
yeah.
there was stuff that was gonna come out, like that there were more people involved or anything like that, it would have come out already, because
Hmm.
TKO is not going to want to A, subject themselves to it, and B, they are not going to want anything that they know now that they don't disclose. They are not going to want that to come out later and make it look like they were trying to cover it up.
So that kind of points to the idea that all right, anybody that's still there is kind of safe.
Maybe, maybe,
Yeah. Okay.
or not safe per se, but like maybe did not have knowledge that requires them
Yeah.
to be removed from the situation.
Yeah.
Because like it's one thing to be actively involved in Vince's activities like John Laurinaitis was.
Hmm.
It's another thing to like hear whispers in the hallway and be like, "Oh, that's weird." And it's another thing to just be going about your day doing your job,
Yeah.
you know? And I think that most of the people at WWE were just the latter. They were going about their day doing their job.
Hmm.
And hopefully the sort of like explosive reveals of who knew what or whatever are going to be minimal, if at all, in the coming months.
That I mean that would be great. Hopefully that's the case.
Mhm.
Um,
And then we'll just have to sit through a trial.
I
Everybody
remember
loves those.
somebody was saying that like, oh, they're gonna run out of topics for Dark Side of the Ring. I was like, buddy, we're
They
making new topics every freaking day. You
could
know,
just run a
it's
Twitter feed.
like I'll show you how this works. First, you plant the seeds of a documentary, and that's
Mm-hmm.
by having some crazy shit happen. That's always happened. We're always planting seeds. You
Mm-hmm.
just need a little bit of time and
Mm-hmm.
then you make the documentary. So don't worry about that. There's
Be
going to be
really
some crazy
interesting.
docs.
Speaking of, be really interesting to see what happens with the Netflix Vince documentary.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
especially
funny
since
because
Netflix is now, partners with them.
this documentary has kept getting changed and changed. They need to do a documentary on this documentary
Yeah.
because it's gone through so many different stages. So like when first Vince got pushed out of his company, there was a
Mhm.
whole like brouhaha like oh sorry, when he was coming back in,
Yeah.
there was stuff like written into the language of him coming back that said he was the sole owner of like the story of Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
And I was like, does okay. All right. What does that mean for the Netflix documentary? And
Yeah.
I still don't know what that means for the Netflix documentary, but they were still making it. And then more shit about Vince McMahon came out. And then it's like, what's going on with the documentary? And everyone's just like, it's the content of it is still playing out, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to stop now. Like,
Yep. It's like there's
you
a
know?
great series of documentaries called Paradise Lost, which is about
Mhm.
the West Memphis Three. Where in the '90s there were three like heavy metal kids who got arrested and railroaded in the South. Shocking, because they liked heavy metal and people thought they were devil worshippers, and then these kids got killed and they were like, well, it had to be them. And so they
Yeah.
made this documentary about it. And then more stuff came out. So they made a second documentary about it. And
Mhm.
then even more stuff was happening. And as they were making the third part of the documentary, they had their convictions essentially vacated. So
Yeah.
it was like you get this crazy 20-year story that just kind of keeps evolving through these three movies.
Dang. Now
And
it's just a YouTube live cam of them like sitting around going, "Oh fuck, that was crazy."
that was weird.
Good thing our life is
Anyway,
normal now.
everything's fine now. Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about something, and we have a few minutes left here, and I think this is a good place to drop it,
Dive into it. All
like it's hot. Um, I likes me some hip hop, likes me
right. Okay.
some music on wax, on the
Mm-hmm.
ones and twos, so to speak. O'Shea Jackson Jr., son of the prolific Ice Cube,
Nice.
is a he's a wrestling fan. Loves wrestling. Thinks wrestling's great.
Yeah.
Um, and he said something that I've kind of been saying forever. And every time I
Huh.
say it, people are like, "You're a grumpy old jerk," and I'm like, "Probably, but I'm still not wrong." When it comes to the new and casual fan, and the context of all this is he was being interviewed about stuff, and he brought up AEW. He said
Right.
AEW is great, but it needs more narrative storytelling so that people that come in and out know what's going on and know what's happening and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I don't know who most of these people are, and the backlash to this was weird and
Mm-hmm.
unwarranted to start with. But a lot of people were like, "Hey, man, well, you got to go out and do your research, and you got to." Even Tony Khan jumped in and was like, "Well, perhaps you should check out other wrestling promotions." O'Shea, you're like, "Calm down, Tony. Calm down." This guy's
Also,
like,
I think Tony Khan is the first ever wrestling promoter to ever say that to a fan.
"Yeah, yeah,
Right?
seriously."
Like,
So, but it brought up something that I had felt a long time in my previous life of comic books and things like that, and it is that wrestling fans are their own worst enemy when it comes to growing and creating awareness of the thing that they say they love.
yeah.
Because when you look at, if you're a person who's like, maybe I'll check out this wrestling thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know, eh, it's fairly easy to figure out. O'Shea makes a good point. There needs to be more narrative. I get it. But I can also sit my 8-year-old down and explain to her why people are doing things, and she gets it. So I figure you'd be okay. But what that casual fan is going to do is they're going to be like, "Oh, I'd love to. I watched wrestling when I was younger. What's going on in wrestling?" And they're going to Google, and what they're going to find is nothing but fans shitting on the thing that they like purport to love, and
Yeah.
making it sound like it's terrible and awful, and that casual fans are idiots for not knowing things, and so on and so forth. And they're going to look at it and be like, "I don't want to be involved in that. That doesn't sound like fun at all. I'm going to go back to
Yeah.
video games and drugs." You know, so we as wrestling fans the same can be said for Marvel fans, for comic book fans, for fight fans, for football fans. As a fan, if you love something, yes, you can criticize it. Yes, you can decide whether you like or don't like it. But just back off in terms of just shitting on it openly.
Hmm.
You know, being those stands and homers who are just like, well, everything that AEW does is perfect and WWE is terrible. And it's like nobody actually thinks that. Nobody does. I would be hard pressed to find a single person who's like, I watch AEW exclusively. Like you pay attention, you're watching. It's fine. You don't need to make it seem like it's this impenetrable wall that if someone walks into, they are going to be, they're going to run up against a huge group of people being like, "You like that band? Name 5 songs."
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's an important conversation for us as fans to have because it can get out of control really quick. I mentioned comic books before. Comic books fell into this territory huge, where we have massive movies that make billions of dollars, 25 movie franchises, all this kind of stuff. When I worked in comics, which was up until about 6 years ago, Batman was the number one selling book in the world. Do you know how many copies Batman sold every month? 150,000. That's it. Think of all the people that go and watch a Batman movie,
Hmm.
but only 150,000 people buy the comic book. And that is a direct result of fans making the medium inaccessible to new people. Because that person that goes and watches a Batman movie is like, oh, I love
Hmm.
Batman. I'd love to get some more stuff. I'll head over to the comic book store and, oh, there's now someone here making fun of me because I don't know what happened in the 90s, or I don't know this, or, it's intimidating to know which ones because there's like 90 years worth of content there. Wrestling is exactly the same. You need to be welcoming and open for this thing to flourish because wrestling's doing
Yes.
great right now. We all know how quickly that can turn.
Well, you need to bring new fans in. And
Mm-hmm.
part of WWE's success was that they started to cater to kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel how that benefited them in the long run was those kids were wrestling fans. Then maybe around like whatever, 14 or 15, maybe they grew out of it.
I've
Then they
heard some
have
people
some
do that. Yes.
some people did, not all of them. That's but then when they had kids, all of a sudden they remembered wrestling being a cool part of their childhood. So they
Mm-hmm.
introduced their kids to it. And then you have this new cycle of fans,
Yep.
replacing themselves every 25 years, 30 years, or whatever.
Less,
Um,
probably every 10.
yeah. And so now the question is, and I think Ice Cube Jr.,
Mm.
uh, O'Shea Jackson, I
Yes.
saw he was on Kenobi. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
all right.
He also played his own father in the Straight Outta Compton biopic.
Oh, okay, awesome, awesome. He definitely looks like his dad.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, I don't think he said anything bad about AEW. I think he was giving some advice to
Yep.
AEW. Like I don't think it the way I read it didn't come off with like any malice or anything. It was like a legitimate, hey, I think if they did this, it would be easier to
Mm-hmm.
get newer fans in. I kind of agree. Honestly, I do.
Yeah.
Like, I go to wrestling events with my nieces and nephews, and I love seeing how they view the wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're coming at it not with a blank slate at this point, but like, they've come at it,
Mm-hmm.
they've had few life experiences, right? So like there's this is just what's being presented is
Yeah.
what I'm supposed to see. And I love watching how they view things, what they like, what they don't like, what's important to them, what makes them cheer somebody, what makes them boo somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot different than the seasoned wrestling fan who's been around a long time. We don't need those video packages to explain who Bandito is. But
Yep.
look, if you showed me a Bandito match with no buildup, I'll be like, that's awesome. Bandito. Wow, that dude's
What a
really
guy.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you showed it to my niece, she'd be like, "Whoa, yeah, no, he jumps and does a lot of stuff like Ricochet." And But if you put a little video package before that match that showed Bandito in the
Yeah.
Old West, and he was in a gun slinging battle with Hangman Page,
Yeah.
and wait,
And
there's
Kenny
a
Omega was
few
there for some reason. We don't know.
and then like it was this cool thing, and then she was able to see, oh, I get it. That guy's like a
Yeah, okay.
bandito, but he does all these cool high flying moves or whatever.
Yeah.
Like just that little thing creates more of a connection in her mind with who Bandito is.
Yep.
And then so if we got those video packages, people young and old could all be enjoying Bandito together.
We could
That's
put them up
all
on a
Ice Cube Jr. wants.
we could put them
That's
up on
all
a
he
site.
wants.
A site. A tube site. Perhaps with a U. I don't know. It'd be
But you
incredible.
but I remember growing up just getting into wrestling and there'd be these little vignettes.
Mhm.
And I remember there was a vignette for this guy called Skinner. And I'd learned later that nobody really liked Skinner.
Mm.
I didn't know that. So I liked
I like
Skinner.
Skinner.
Because he was around all these cool alligators and
Yeah.
he spit this stuff out of his mouth that I'd later learned was chewing tobacco. So he was providing a horrible, example for me
Mm.
as a child. Don't market that to me, sir. Skinner. It was
Yes.
actually Steve Kernan is a cool dude, and CM Punk wrote the forward to his book.
Oh, he
But
wrote a book.
anyway, like it like all of a sudden, instead of a wrestler that people didn't like, that like I was able
Mhm.
to form a connection. Oh, this guy, cool alligator guy. Yeah, I want to see cool alligator guy. And like more seasoned fans are going to feel like, okay, well, then you're just spoon feeding me my wrestling. Well, yeah, you don't
Yeah.
need that, but
Just
new
relax.
fans, but it helps new fans. So it's like
Yep.
just be
And
cool, man. Come
yeah,
on.
seriously. And I'll
Don't
say
piss
this
off
too.
Ice Cube. Welcome back.
Hi, yeah. Hi. We were very animated before the break there. It was nice. It's good. Yeah. Um, I would like to say, just to sum up though, that the
Okay.
WWE is second only to the NFL in the quality of their video packages.
That WWE is. Oh, what?
Yeah.
NFL? Good video packages?
NFL video packages are like short films. They're amazing. And
Ah.
WWE is like that much behind them. Like they are so good.
Oh, of course. Wait, I know what you're talking about. With deep voiced
Yeah.
narration.
Yeah. Yeah.
It should
Or a
always be,
celebrity, you know.
yes, like very deep voice narration. Or,
Mhm.
yeah, like, yeah.
Yeah. But WWE video packages second only to the NFL.
I think part of it might be AEW devotes so much actual time to wrestling, which,
Yeah, okay.
as a wrestling fan, I'm not going to complain with. But if you actually look at the ratings, the thing that drives ratings more than anything is stars doing promos,
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
you know?
That's
But
what they want to see, the drama and everything. But I'll slip this in here quickly because
mhm.
I started a new gig lately,
Oh,
in which I am covering Ring of Honor
oh, yes.
television for a noted website that starts
A
with an F
noted website.
and then goes into a 4 and then goes into a wrestling.com. Um, and watching Ring of Honor, because I had never really watched Ring of Honor beforehand.
Mhm.
Um,
Like the new Ring of Honor. Did you ever
yeah,
watch any of the original Ring of Honor?
I'd seen clips or like a match here, or a show here kind of thing, but never like
Mhm.
followed anything or, anything like that. And so the AEW Ring of Honor is like, sometimes people talk about the women being forgotten.
Mhm.
Well, I think Tony forgot that he owns Ring of Honor because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you can tell that nobody is taking care of this particular ship. And this is not to say it's bad. I'm just saying
Mhm.
it's like a half step up from pre Full Sail NXT. When
Yeah.
like when Johnny Curtis and Derek Bateman were bumming around, that kind of era of NXT. Except that in Ring of Honor, there are some exceptional matches and some really
Oh,
cool
yeah.
talent and
Yes.
stuff like that. But there's also like two and a half stories, and that's it. So their 2 hour program is a whole lot of like, here's these guys that you might maybe know versus some guys you probably don't.
Mhm.
And
I,
fatal four ways, they love fatal four ways too. I've done this for like a month and a half now. Every episode has had one, if not multiple, fatal four ways.
yeah, well, it's part of this thing that AEW has done ever since they started, and they would have these episodes of AEW Dark where you'd get like 20 squash matches.
Yeah.
And you'd think to yourself, who is this for? And who's like, yes, I want to watch matches where the results never in doubt and there's no story. Just a completely like unnecessary display of wrestling.
Yeah.
Um, but remember, AEW, this is Tony Khan's baby.
Yep.
And Tony Khan is around our generation. So he grew up watching a lot of squash matches on TV. Like you
Yep.
and so obviously he drew a connection of like, oh, if you see these guys just squashing other people all the time, then you're gonna be like, that guy's really good. But
And you're like,
the mod
possibly, but then he doesn't
yeah,
go anywhere.
like, well, yeah, but like, yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like,
But he's
I
just
was
lost in a sea of 50 other wrestlers doing the same dance every week. And now instead
exactly.
of it being AEW Dark, um, a lot of it's happening on
It's
Ring
Ring
of
of Honor.
Honor. But I have noticed, like, at least in Ring of Honor now, there are some things going on, whereas
Yeah.
there was like nothing going on in Dark. You'd have like maybe the occasional like thing that lasts a couple of weeks, like, oh, Joey
Mhm.
Janela is upset at Marco Stunt. And like, I remember something like that,
Oh
before I was
man.
like, you know what, guys, I don't need to watch this. But
Dalton Castle has been in like a months long feud with Johnny TV and Taya Valkyrie,
yeah,
and I still have no idea what it's about, except for the fact that Dalton Castle wants to punch him. Like that's it.
but they have the tournament for the TV title. So at
Yes,
least,
that's going great.
there's some stuff going on.
And Athena
They had
Nyla Rose is excellent.
Athena Nyla Rose was good, and Athena and Billy Starks, that whole thing
Hmm.
that before you started covering it, I thought was really good too. So there is some stuff. There's just not a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And surrounding that stuff is about an hour and 45 minutes of not stuff.
No,
And that's
no.
too much not stuff.
Pod to stuff. Pod to
Yeah.
stuff. And yeah, and it's like when we were watching those matches growing up,
Mhm.
on when Raw was 2 hours and you'd get a lot of like Kai and Tai matches and
Mhm.
Val Venus matches and things like that. Um, they always wrapped them around the main through line of the story.
Yeah.
It was happening. They'd be like, "Yeah, we're watching this Val Venus versus Test match of attrition, I guess. I don't know. But boy, don't you remember when Stone Cold checked out that thing earlier this afternoon? What do you think's going to happen? Like they make it all seem like it's happening at once. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Whereas, and maybe it's just the tape nature of Ring of Honor or whatever, but
Mhm.
I find that you forget what's happening in those stories because like they might do something off the top and then they just never mention it again until that particular match.
Yeah, well, like the stories make up such little screen time, right?
Yeah.
So much of the screen time is what I called before a completely unnecessary display of wrestling. It's like,
I like that.
um, and like I don't want to just shit all over it because they have some
Yeah.
incredible
It's
wrestlers in
fun.
there. Sometimes unnecessary displays of wrestling involve Bandito, and as we previously discussed, I enjoy that quite a bit. But there's other
Indeed.
guys like AR. Like I was looking at the lineup for tomorrow's show. Like
Mhm.
AR Fox is doing a 4-way, and Matt Seidel's in
Yep.
there. I was like, well, that'll be just fine. Like
Yeah.
it'll still be good stuff. But where my issue with how they treat Ring of Honor right now is how they tie it in with Dynamite and Rampage tapings, because I think that's
Mhm.
contributing to their sort of going in
Attendance
front of
woes.
their attendance problems. I was
Yeah.
trying to be nice and be like their attendance challenges, but so like as I've said before, you go to an AEW show and it's like Dynamite's awesome, the
Mhm.
Rampage after is awesome, but like I remember I went to a Rampage and it was 2 hours of AEW Dark and then a Rampage. I was like, okay, that doesn't need to be a 3 hour show. You didn't need to do 2 hours. Like, give me like
Yeah,
an hour of like hot, dark. It was like, all right, yeah, give me AR Fox and Bandito. It's
yeah.
like, great, good stuff. 2 hours of that. Oh, sir, you've gone a touch over our limit.
You've negated our agreement, sir. But no, and you know what? I think that NXT, and I compare Ring of Honor to NXT, um, because I think that in terms of how AEW is structured, it's the closest comparison. You know,
Mhm.
to be honest, you would forget that Ring of Honor had anything to do with AEW aside from the occasional promo for a pay-per-view or maybe
Yeah.
a Dynamite coming up. Like you would have no idea that they had anything to do with each other. Um, NXT had the benefit of being in Full Sail,
Hmm.
which meant that it didn't go anywhere. And it had dedicated fans that would show up for the tapings who
Hmm.
were there to watch those tapings, not watch NXT tacked onto a Raw or a SmackDown. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
like 205 Live suffered through for those many years that we were all
When they
sad
brought
about.
back ECW in 2006 and they were like,
Mhm.
yeah, we'll just put it on after SmackDown. It's like, but those aren't the ECW fans. Those are the
Yeah.
SmackDown fans.
And
So
also
you're doing,
those SmackDown fans have just sat through 3 hours of SmackDown.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
So what I think they should do is stop making your Dynamite, your AEW tapings so long by
Yeah.
tacking on an hour and a half of Ring of Honor. Go back to the Orlando studios, the Universal
Mhm.
Studios that they had been doing the shows at. Make that the Ring of Honor's
Yeah.
zone. Do that every couple of weeks. You get some people some uh they get some reps in, they can
Yep.
work on the wrestling, they can work on their storytelling. Another idea is just say, all right, like if you're not going to put a lot of emphasis on this, why don't you just say like, all right, Chuck Taylor, you be the booker for this show. Like, go write the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
You
That's
know?
the big difference is you can tell there is no one at the helm
Yeah.
directing any of this stuff.
Like it's somebody's sixth priority after AEW, the Jacksonville
Mhm.
Jaguars, Fulham FC, some
The
TV
Young
shows that he's
Bucks,
into. You know, it's
shopping with
like
the Young Bucks.
um so that's like letting somebody else own it and say like, all right, look, you are the
Yeah.
booker for this show. Now, it doesn't have to be Chuck Taylor, but it
Mm.
could be Chuck Taylor. No,
Could be Sting. He's gonna be free the next little while.
could be Brian Danielson. Just give it back to
How
the
amazing.
give
How
it back to El
amazing.
Generico, who was booking Ring of Honor before. Just be like, yeah, I bought it. You can have it still, though.
But
I'm done with this toy. You can play with it again. After I
how
took
great
it
would
from
it be
you
for
in
Brian
December.
Danielson
Mm-hmm.
to be booking and producing Ring of Honor,
Mm-hmm.
a place that he has tons of ties with, so you know that he would be good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then occasionally he goes and he does a match on Dynamite or Collision. Here's the
Well,
other
I
thing
mean,
too,
mm-hmm.
AEW. You've got a lot of shows,
You do have a lot of shows.
and I know you don't do the dark thing anymore, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe fewer shows.
Well, you can't like I don't know if this is like a general strategy in the entertainment world of just drown them in content.
Yes.
Like never make it so that they go, okay, I'm out of AEW content. I guess I'll give WWE a try again. I don't
Yeah.
know if that's maybe the strategy.
If it is a strategy, it's
Yeah.
extremely short-sighted and shows a fundamental misunderstanding of the fan base they're trying to serve.
Yeah.
Because
In the
I'll say it again. I said it last time or last half, and I'll say it again now. There is the number of people that watch AEW exclusively
mm-hmm,
infinitesimal.
mm-hmm.
Because it's not like when you and I were growing up in Canada, the Great White North, where Nitro and well, I guess actually in the States they were on the same night, weren't they? In Canada they were
Yeah, they
on
were.
Mondays and Tuesdays,
They
right?
were on separate
So
nights, yeah.
you had to make a choice.
Mm-hmm,
And even then you were still bouncing back and forth, but you had to make a choice. Whereas now they don't have to make a choice. They
mm-hmm.
can watch it all.
Yeah.
So trying to cater to a specific like AEW fan, you're talking to the converted.
Well, it's
And it's a small
interesting.
number of converted.
Well, it's interesting because like people say, well, that's not true. What about all this tribalism? The tribalistic people are watching both shows. They
Mm,
are absolutely watching both shows.
big
That's
time.
how they know what to complain about is they saw it and they didn't like it.
Well,
So
they decided that it wasn't cool enough. But all that is to say, Ring of Honor has been a surprising delight to be part
mhm.
of the coverage of, and if you are looking for something a little different, a little more low key, and don't have the CW app, you may want to
And
check out
doesn't
Ring of
have
Honor.
Loki either.
the
I mean, he's
the
in the
wrestler
archives.
or the Marvel guy.
Yeah, in this timeline, anyway. I don't know.
Anyway, switching gears though from a small show to a big show,
Mhm.
not Paul White.
No
Um,
more BS.
mm-mm. Elimination Chamber
Yeah.
is happening this weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and it could be a pivotal,
Pivotable.
pivotal. It's a pivotal step of the thing. It's a pivotal step on the road to WrestleMania this year because it's the last. Sometimes they squeeze two pay-per-views in, but
Yeah.
this time this is the last one before WrestleMania, so we're gonna be off and running. And I have to be honest, underwhelming.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying for a stadium show that like legit tax dollars from everyday Australian
Mhm.
citizens went to pay to bring you. It does the lineup feels a little underwhelming. Like, could you not have tacked on like a few like I know they don't do matches on the kickoff show anymore
Yeah.
and they want the shows like a little tighter, like all like basically all main event,
Mhm.
but like I feel like a lot of the fans going to the show, if you put like Bronson Reed versus so and so on the
Yeah.
undercard and like got a few more local talents on the show, like
Yeah.
the fact that Bronson Reed isn't on the show, I'm like, what are you doing? Bronson Reed's awesome. And everybody wants Bronson Reed on the show. Why would you not put him on the show? And like to the point where it's like I know we are what like 4 days from the show. I'm like
Mhm.
Bronson Reed's gonna wrestle on that goddamn show, or everybody over there are idiots. Um, yeah, like
Maybe.
it's only four matches. You know,
Yeah.
you've got Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax, which the crowd's this is just an opportunity for
Mhm.
everybody to give Rhea Ripley her flowers. And she absolutely deserves it. She's one
Mhm.
of the MVPs of Raw for the last however long,
Yep.
and she is going to get a massive reaction. She deserves every second of it. She got a massive reaction at the house show I went to because,
Mhm.
like, again, to kids, Rhea Ripley is a larger than life star. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So this is going to be a big homecoming for her. What's the other non-elimination chamber match?
The tag team titles.
Oh, okay. So you Finn Balor
Yeah.
against Tyler Bate, and like, you know
Yeah.
what? That'll be a great match, but it's not like a marquee kind
Right.
of thing, right? They just did Jay Uso versus Gunther on. Oh wait, is Jay Uso in the Elimination Chamber?
I am not sure,
I'm
but
not
he
sure
did
either.
lose that match.
Yeah,
Let's just
but
have
like,
a look see.
Why couldn't they have done that? Gunther versus Jay Uso
Yeah.
on Elimination Chamber. Like, I know you need main events for Raw and stuff like that, but like, this is a big stadium show, and we've got four matches
Mhm.
and Roman Reigns isn't on the card. Uh, the Rock has
Mhm.
been on the show for like weeks, and he's not going to be at this stadium show. Like, it does feel like, hey, I thought this was a big deal. This feels like a B pay per view.
Yeah, so we've
So
got
yeah,
the men's chamber match, which is Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, Bobby Lashley, LA Knight, Kevin Owens, and Logan Paul. So
yeah,
that'll be all right, I guess.
yeah,
But
yeah,
and I guess whoever wins goes on to face Seth at WrestleMania for the heavyweight
yeah,
title.
yeah.
So that's an
Well,
interesting
you
aspect
know
to it.
what?
But at the same time,
Mm,
you could take any one of these guys, except maybe Logan Paul, because he's already got the US title,
mhm.
and put them in that slot. Like, we don't have to have this match. You could literally just draw straws.
Yeah, I mean, I like the story that they're doing with Drew McIntyre.
Mm,
Um, I like that this world title scene, which has been basically cursed because first Seth got injured, so he hasn't been able to wrestle in forever. Then
yeah.
CM Punk got injured. That was the big match. And then you're like, okay, where do we go from here? Also, Damian Priest has the money in the bank, so I don't know what's
Yep.
going on with that either. So it feels like this is a case of like their plans have gotten so scrapped because of injuries that
Yeah.
it's just like, well, here's what we can still do. And, which is
Yeah.
fine. I just
Yeah.
think there's so many stars on the roster that somehow aren't on this lineup, like
Yeah.
at all. That
And
that's what I find kind of disappointing about it.
the other thing too is, okay, I have a contradicting opinion
Okay.
in that I think two chamber matches in one night
Hmm.
is too much.
Well,
Now,
that's yeah.
you can have two Royal Rumbles in one night because that is a fast-paced match
Hmm.
in which the complexity of it is ever changing.
Yeah.
So you can you can get away with having 2 hours of your 3 hour pay-per-view be Royal Rumble matches, and it's okay. The
Hmm.
Elimination Chamber is not that.
Hmm.
And I have never been a huge fan of the Elimination Chamber myself. I think I like elimination matches. I like the idea of, the pods and things like that. I hate the structure. The
Hmm.
structure makes no sense to me. It's hard to see through. It does not really do anything except provide one or two people an opportunity to jump off something high.
Yeah.
And so I don't really understand them. So to take your pay-per-view, 3 hours of your pay-per-view and dedicate 2 hours to just chamber matches, that's like two-thirds of it that I'm already not interested in. I mean, the women's match is Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, Tiffany Stratton, Naomi, and Raquel Rodriguez. And then I guess the winner will go on to face Rhea Ripley or Nia Jax, whoever wins that match
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
WrestleMania. Though Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, like, yeah, I'd love to see
Mhm.
those guys just have a great one-on-one drag out match. Naomi, Tiffany Stratton, Raquel Rodriguez, Liv Morgan, great wrestlers in their own right, but I don't really need to see them in something like an elimination chamber match. And it just the fact too that they're asking us in North America to get up at 5 a.m. to watch it is also a little bit. So I can't help but wonder if they were just like, yeah, no one's really gonna get up and watch this, so we'll put together something that's gonna be entertaining, but not our best foot forward.
Well, I think they do know that the viewership for the Saudi shows are not as big because of the
Mhm.
time that they're taking place. And so I do, they are going to be cognizant to some degree that fewer people are going to be watching this and more people will choose to just, oh, the results are already out. I don't need to
Yeah,
watch this. So that's part of it. I think part of the reason the Elimination Chamber doesn't have the appeal that it used to is when it first came in, it was always for the world title.
yeah,
And that just made it feel so much more important. Like, not that obviously being in a world title match at
yeah,
WrestleMania is important, but it's essentially a number one contenders elimination chamber match. That's a step down from a title
yeah.
match. Um, and yeah, it doesn't have the same, like, it's sort of like the secondary Royal Rumble, but it doesn't have the same sort of like Royal
Cachet.
Rumble is
Yeah,
the perfect wrestling thing. It's every 2 minutes there's a new entrance. People can have a pop and see their cool moves. Every 2 minutes here comes
yeah.
a new guy or whatever. Like it's like here's wrestling, but like really quick. Uh, so so it's just, it doesn't compare in that way, but it used to have more appeal when you were like six people are in a match. Shit, like two or three of them could realistically leave
Mhm.
that match the world champion. So you knew the entire like framework
Yeah,
of the company was different. Doesn't feel that way right now.
no,
Um, and yeah, basically you have four matches. Two of them are elimination chamber matches. So that's going to be like the majority of the show.
yeah,
And I get that, we saw same thing with War Games, 2 War Games matches, 3 matches in the middle, Royal Rumble, 3 matches in the middle. I get that you want that structure, but since this is a unique show in Australia in front of
Yeah.
45,000 people that the government subsidized, like, could you showcase some of your Australian wrestlers other than Rhea Ripley?
Or just
Like,
showcase
because you,
something.
yeah, like Grayson Waller's going to do the Waller effect, and that's
Yeah.
actually better for him than wrestling in a match because it plays more. Not that he's a fine
Plays
wrestler,
it
but
into
like,
his strengths,
yeah, like he's good on the mic and stuff. So he's going to get to shine a little bit, but Indy Hartwell, Bronson Reed, just like a few more matches. Just say they're undercard matches, but put them on the show just so it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like you've kind of ripped
Mhm.
off this country.
Well,
So
and like you say, Grayson Waller's going to have Cody and
Seth on the Grayson
Seth
Waller effect.
on the
Yeah.
Grayson Waller effect. Okay, I get it. That's a way to get Seth
Mhm.
involved. Makes sense. But like, you couldn't have Cody do a tag match with Bronson Reed or something. You know what I mean? Like you couldn't have your top guy, Cody Rhodes,
Mhm.
who you've been telling us is your top guy, is going to be there, and he's going to come out in a suit and cut a promo. That'll probably be great, but is that
Oh, that's
really what you want to see?
That's what I'm saying. Look at all the talent that they have that is not on this show. Bailey and Io Sky. And the ratings back this up. This is a very popular storyline, Bailey and
Mm-hmm.
Damage Control. They have nothing at Elimination Chamber. They're not on the show.
Mm-hmm.
We just talked about Gunther versus Jey Uso. They just did an
Mm-hmm.
intercontinental title match that easily could have been a pay per view match. I get you on a big thing for Raw, but that
Mm-hmm.
could have been on this pay per view too. It almost feels like they were like, let's just take this match from Elimination Chamber and we'll put it on Raw. Like,
Yeah,
it does feel like this is a bit of a neglected pay per view, a little,
a little bit. Well, yeah, and because
Yeah.
it's also kind of like everything's been under the auspice of The Rock and the Bloodline and
Yep.
those like that group of people, and so we haven't been seeing a whole lot of like there was a last chance battle royal. I was like, oh yeah, I guess it would be the last chance,
Mhm.
because but there hasn't been there were a couple of qualifying matches for the chamber, but again, no real like this is why these people are in the qualifying matches aside from they work here and are wrestlers, and
Well,
that's
yeah.
just disappointing. Now I understand they've been busy.
Well, they've
That
yeah,
said,
they've had some things going on.
you know,
Yeah, they did have qualifying matches, so that concern, but it was the same thing. That's like, all right, well, if somebody's involved in a storyline, then they didn't get a qualifying match for some reason. Like Shinsuke Nakamura is challenged for the world
yeah,
title, but for some reason he didn't get to qualify for the Elimination Chamber because he was doing a promo that was really cool.
yeah,
I don't know, and then he
yeah.
had to spit mist in someone's face. Just like, well, he's busy, so he's not in this thing, which is not really how sports work, right? Like, it's not
No,
like, well, the playoffs are going to start, but the Orioles are in a feud with the Blue Jays.
no.
So instead of going to the Elimination Chamber, I mean, the ALCS, we're going to have a special grudge match. And it's going to
we're gonna
take
add
place. It's going to
we're gonna
take
add the
place inside of a steel
Cardinals.
cage. The Cardinals in the mix, a three-way dance.
A
Don't
battle
pay
of the
attention to what our
birds.
commissioner's doing. Behind the scenes, it's a mess here.
The battle of the birds.
We're so ridiculous, we can fly under the radar and unscrutinized, allowing people to, well, you get the picture.
Their whole motto is Major League Baseball.
Hey,
Ooh.
we've been successful a long time. I don't know why, but let's keep it going. I like baseball. I don't know how to say
Yeah,
about it.
it's true. Me too.
Yeah, it's a
But,
it's a game.
um, yeah. So the Elimination Chamber, like, I feel like since it's such a big bump on the road to WrestleMania, that
Mhm.
we should be more excited for it at this point. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to take a crap all over it because it'll probably be a good show, but
Yeah, yeah.
like I just have this thing. It was like so much of the show of like the overall WWE show is not on that show. Like no Bailey, no Damage Control, no Bronson, no Roman, no Rock,
Nope.
no Cody in a match. It's like, all right.
Maybe they should do that. The thing they used to do for the Rumble, where people had to pull numbers out of a tumbler,
A
and
tumbler for the elimination
that's how
chamber.
you get in the elimination chamber. Like,
I like it is their least exciting gimmick match, right?
well,
Like
and I
it's
hate gimmick match based events.
yeah.
Like it's cool to have a Hell in a Cell match. It's
Mhm.
not cool to have a Hell in a Cell pay per view.
Yeah, the idea of like, okay, this match is happening not because it happened organically, but because of
Yeah,
where it is on the
because it's
schedule.
October.
Yeah, well, you can do that with the Royal Rumble, right? Because it's so many people that
And
like
it's
you
the
can fit
glaring
a bunch of
exception
different
too.
storylines in it, which
Yeah.
is kind of, I guess, the theory with the Elimination Chamber is you can have multiple stories play out, not as many as in a Royal Rumble, but multiple main, and then that leads into WrestleMania. Like, of course, like what we're gonna see in the Elimination Chamber is, yeah, somebody's gonna win it, and they're gonna go wrestle Seth or Rhea
Yeah.
Ripley or whatever. But like throughout that, somebody's gonna eliminate Drew McIntyre, and Drew McIntyre is gonna be angry, and he's gonna want to fight that guy at
Yeah.
WrestleMania, and somebody else is gonna be upset that their story wasn't finished, but somebody else's story wasn't finished either. And then this guy's finished his story, but there was no fans because of the pandemic, and
Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't it be funny if like Drew McIntyre won and was like, I'm coming for you, Rhea Ripley. And everyone's just like, I guess you can do that. I'd watch
well,
that.
I don't know who's going to win the like. I think like Sami Zayn, another guy that's not in the
Mhm.
thing. Um,
Last
like Drew
year,
Mac, yeah.
look at Sami Zayn compared to last year's Elimination Chamber and
Oh
this year's
God,
Elimination Chamber.
no kidding.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but they are doing this story with him, and I'm interested to see where it goes because he is approaching an arc,
Mm.
and this is very WWE playbook where it's like, okay, when the character's going to change, he's going to lose a shit ton of matches in a row
Yeah.
because the idea is after the change, anything that happened before doesn't matter anymore, right? Like this is a new
No.
character essentially. Not like a new gimmick, but like, something has
Mhm.
ignited a spark in him and he's better than ever before. It's going to be that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But Sammy is such a great performer that when he was doing these interviews, he's talking with Jackie Redmond, which is always weird to me because she's on Sportsnet too. I'm like,
Mm.
but it, okay. Um, like he had such like he was talking about exactly what you were talking about. It was like, I was almost there. I almost won the title. I almost proved I was a world champion, but I failed. I didn't do it. And like his story is, I failed and now I'm starting to go downhill. Like I'm failing again.
Mhm.
I'm, I want to show everyone that I'm a world champion, but something right now isn't clicking. That's what we know about Sami Zayn. So, what we're going to find out probably through the build to WrestleMania is
Mhm.
what's going to be that thing to change? What's going to take him from this guy who's losing all the time to a legit world contender?
Perhaps he
Could
needs to head to Mexico
could be
and
become El Generico
check
again.
in with his friend who went there to run an orphanage, El Generico, and
like
get some life advice.
like normally this pattern means a heel turn, but I don't think that's what they're doing. Like I don't know. It doesn't feel like they're gonna turn Sami Zayn heel. I don't know.
Sami Zayn as a heel only really worked for me when he was paired with heel Kevin Owens too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise he's too likable of a guy. You're like, I know you're being a jerk right now, but I still want to see you win.
Well, that's what happened with the bloodline. I mean, I can't wait until enough time has passed where I can go back and just watch that
Mhm.
storyline play out again on Netflix or whatever the archives are on by the time
Yeah.
it's okay because that was such a classic classic storyline in wrestling history.
Mhm.
Sami Zayn, latching on to this group of main eventers while being this sort of like likable doofus or whatever. And I don't know. It just all played out beautifully. And then they moved into this storyline where him and Kevin Owens win the tag titles. But
Yeah.
then they were defending the tag titles. And then it's like, well, I don't know where any of you guys fit now. Like, we're going to take Owens and he's going to work with Logan Paul. But
Mhm.
that's about Logan Paul, not so much about Kevin Owens. And then it feels like Sami Zayn has been a little bit directionless.
Mhm.
And he recently took some time off. So I don't know if the idea was, okay, you're going to take some time off. We're not going to build anything too big or whatever. But like, I'm not worried about him getting lost in the shuffle because
Mhm.
clearly they're building to something. But yeah, he had a big rise. He was on top for a bit, and then it did fizzle. Like,
Mhm.
at one time, his segments were getting gigantic ratings. Like,
Oh
he
yeah.
was popping, like, Bloodline Sami Zayn stuff was so over, so popular that I was like, no matter what they've got planned for WrestleMania, they might have to just go, you know what? We're gonna give Sami Zayn the title there. I thought there was a chance.
Yeah. No, it could have happened because
Yeah.
one of my favorite wrestling stories of like the modern or the last 10 years was Kevin Owens' debut
Mm-hmm.
in NXT.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
he showed up and he beat the living hell out of CJ Parker and no one was upset by that. And then he turned on Sammy at the end of the night. And Sammy,
Yeah.
up until that point, had been working like a months long program with Aaron Neville, or sorry, Adrian Neville,
Mm-hmm.
and the artist now
And
known as
Aaron
Pac.
Neville, but that played out in the music world.
He didn't know much, and he loved him. Um, and it was this whole like Sami Zayn chasing that dream and just getting there but
Yeah.
not quite making getting there. And he is so likable a person that he is the perfect guy to play that like
Mhm.
that constant chase, and that's where his real sweet spot is. Once he became the champion, it was nice.
Mhm.
He and Kevin had a great feud, and then Kevin won the title from him. um,
Yeah.
and then he went
Well,
on
that's
to do all that stuff, and then one of my favorite matches of the modern era would be Sami Zayn's last match in NXT and Shinsuke Nakamura's first.
mhm.
Like that match was so incredible that like it gives me chills to think about that match. So, Sami Zayn has always been the guy who's better chasing the big prize than winning it.
Mhm.
So whether you do that at a WrestleMania, I don't know. When he and Kevin Owens first came into WWE, I was like, that's your main event of WrestleMania in 5 years,
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
that's easy. Now it's been like 9 years since that happened. But so I was a little off in my timing, but it could still happen. Still happen.
Yeah, it could.
Yeah.
I well, yeah, it's going to be the next year for Sami Zayn is going to be interesting
Mhm.
because like I do believe that Triple H has a lot of faith in the guy because like as you were saying that period of NXT was
Mhm.
so good, right? And Triple H obviously had that faith in him then.
Yep.
So I don't imagine that that's faded at all. But on
No.
top of that, you do have now statistics that show look, when Sami Zayn is in a hot storyline, people are drawn to it,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, he might not be a draw right now, but that's because, his character fizzled because his underdog character won the titles with Kevin Owens. They sort of finished their storyline. He didn't beat Roman, but hey, a story got finished. So now you have to start something new, right?
Yeah.
And I think they recognize that, and it's okay. Let's build that. And we're seeing the first chapter, and the first chapter appears to be lose a lot of matches.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can
First
I
step,
just
lose a lot of matches. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
can I just real quick before we get cut off here because the ending
Mm-hmm.
is approaching. Since Triple H has taken over booking, there's been one thing missing from WWE TV, and I'm so happy
Mm-hmm.
for it, and that is the contract signing.
Oh, yeah.
There's been like no contract
There's been
signings.
no